Welcome back to My Trauma's Chronic, but I'm Iconic. In the second part, we continue our enlightening conversation with Eleanor Marks, a high conflict divorce coach with a wealth of experience guiding individuals through their darkest moments. In this segment, we will further examine the impact of emotional abuse on survivors, including the nuances of self esteem and mental health. We'll also discuss how to recognize the signs of such abuse, the importance of support systems, and the practical steps towards healing and empowerment. So join us as we continue to break the silence, raise awareness, and empower survivors to reclaim their voices and their lives. Welcome back to My Trauma's Chronic, but I'm Iconic. What advice do you think clients who are dealing with manipulative ex-partners skilled at courtroom theatrics or distorting the truth? How do you prepare them to present their case effectively and remain composed under pressure?
It's a big question. It's a really big question. Um, there's no one like set plan.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have clients that have exes or soon to be exes that just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And it can be overwhelming at first, but it's like, no, let them keep talking because they will kind of dig their own grave. And then it turns out better in the end. We come into a courtroom thinking that a judge can like see everything, right? They get 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and sometimes your soon-to-be ex, says something, and the judge like kind of latches onto that and thinks it's truth. I try to prepare my clients. I'm like, okay, you need to be ready for anything. You need to be ready for the half truths, the full lies, and not get overwhelmed or explode over it because, right, that's what your soon to be ex is kind of looking for, like poking the bear, like, watch this. She has, I'm concerned for her drug problem, and you've never done drugs in your life. And you're like, wait a minute here. So you need to, answer calmly, that isn't accurate. That didn't happen. That didn't occur. Usually a lot of the conflict comes over money, believe it or not. I mean, believe it, a salary. And so you'll have your high conflict partner saying, I only made 30,000 euros that year. And that's a lie. That they made 10 times that much. And instead of like just talking, because then we have a he said she said thing and the judge doesn't know who to believe. But if you have your documentation of like, excuse me, judge, I have the 2023 tax filings here, and he filed saying he made 300,000 euros, that kind of puts everything to rest. So trying to be as best prepared as you can for the lies that come out of uh, nowhere. And I mean, we talk a lot too of just like whether you need to, have a ring, a necklace, something in your pockets, a scarf that you're wearing, something to ground you, because you are going to hear some of the craziest things in front of the judge, and you're being watched as well. You're definitely being watched as well. That also goes down to not just in front of the judge, but like your responses that you send via email, text, whatever it might be. We talk like, imagine that every one of those might be read out in court by a judge. How are you going to feel? You got to keep it in check in the coping mechanisms. Um, it's hard in court because, right, you have attorneys that escalate the situation too. I mean, they're trying to get a rise out of you. Um, it, it's a battleground. It's a battleground, and we have that idea that the judge will be able to see through this. The judge will know. The judge doesn't know you from anybody else, and all they have is what's in front of them. So most of my clients get quite an education on keeping calm, lowering their blood pressure, and trying to know that they're being watched as well.
Yeah, it is quite an emotionally taxing experience. And courtroom manipulation, it's especially there's no measures that are put into place to protect the
Mhm.
survivor's well-being.
Yeah.
Um, quite it's quite damaging. Court systems are not made for those who are being abused in any way, shape, or form. Um,
No.
it's absolutely, crazy. Um, but yeah, everything you say or do is being noted down, any small inconsistencies.
Yeah.
Um,
When you
yeah,
walk into the courtroom too, you have your attorney, hopefully, maybe, and there's also that idea that like, well, my attorney will help me. And they should, right? You're paying them dearly. But like many of times, your attorney's on the fly, doesn't remember who your kids are or anything. And so now you got to like wrangle in that situation of what your attorney is saying on your behalf. We just had a great article that came out this week of a Chicago attorney, big name attorney, makes lots of money and a lot of cases. He was just suspended for 5 months for completely overcharging clients, 60, $80,000 to do basically nothing for their case, like file an appearance and then file a withdrawal, for multiple clients of his. And this is, not, these are divorce, like, and getting custody of your kids and your parenting time. Like, this is priceless stuff. This isn't material things. And, I was in a couple of discussion groups who were talking like, the money that goes into this, but like, how did this attorney, what do they do to these cases and the kids, and seeing mothers and fathers, sometimes your own attorney is your worst enemy too, and now you're up against your soon to be ex who's trying to destroy you. It can be really overwhelming. And one of the things that I coach my clients is like, maybe it's time for a new attorney. Maybe like, right, like life is hard enough here, the situation is crazy circus. Let's find somebody else who's not going to make it as crazy. Did you find that for when you were, because you went in front of a couple of judges, right? For your,
yes, I went through one charge. I went to the Royal Courts of Justice, so it was one of the highest
okay.
courts you could go to. Um, for proceedings, they usually don't take domestic, like family court, like things to do with. They don't often take cases like this. Um, but yeah, the one thing is my parents had to attend court no matter what. It wasn't
Okay.
negotiable. They weren't allowed to be in the same room as me. They had to be in a separate room. There was security with them at all times. I got to leave first.
Okay.
They had to wait in a building for half an hour to an hour before they can leave. Um,
Did you
they
request all that, or was that automatically
no, I I
given to
I
you?
didn't request any of this. It
Oh,
was it was the judge who just made those decisions. Um,
that's amazing because we don't have that here. Like you could be walking in right next to your abuser, in the hall. And I love that.
yeah,
I mean, I don't
it's
love that. I love the European way.
um, yeah. I went to family court and it's absolutely, they will do that. Request that as well for even adults. That's something
Yeah.
that they do. There's still like if you had to be, let's just say for example, it never got. They're like, no, we can't provide that. There's a cursive that goes around uh the witness box. So like nobody can see your face, you can't see them, they can just hear
Yeah.
you. Um,
That's awesome.
I ended up screaming and swearing in court. I went on this whole rant. They let me. They didn't stop me. I had an intermediary, so somebody that will explain a question to me if I didn't understand it, or phrase it differently, or break the question down. Somebody that says, no, you need to stop asking this question. We're gonna take a break. No, she needs this. I had a barrister. He was amazing. Um, or for example, there was this one time where I was asked a question. I didn't understand it. But then I saw all the barristers, all four of them, because there was my biological mother had one, my biological father, my mother's two brothers who got abused. They got one each as well, barristers or legal representatives. Who are the legal representatives? And they made this face. They're like, and I thought that is because they don't believe me. I thought it was because they, they didn't believe me. And I was like, it was starting to get distressed. And I was like, I need a break now. I started walking. The judge actually gave us, um, me, support workers and stuff, her chambers. She went up to a different room. So I had her chambers. That was
Yeah.
exceptional thing. They don't usually do that. So they rarely do that. They never do that. So, and her clerks and stuff, they would get me like they like because I went there before court proceedings,
Hmm.
um, to see the building, to meet the judge and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Um, so I got to do that so I can familiarize myself. I saw where I was going to be staying. Um, and even then, that day, my court proceedings was finished. For like that part of court, but I wasn't invited.
Hmm.
It was not fact finding. Even then, because they wanted me to meet the people that are going to be involved. Um, and they made sure my parents stayed in the building until I went in and they had to leave. And everything was taken seriously.
Oh.
Even lunch times were very strict for them. There was I was gonna say something. I forgot about. Yeah, they got me stickers and all like kind stuff. It was I enjoyed stuff like that. They were really fun to speak to. I like threw extra people in the room with me. I had like my key worker, my and my like one of the men in my life that I consider my father. Um, I got to see my social worker during the breaks. We went, stuff like that. Um, Oh yeah, what I was saying about the faces, I thought that sorry, I just went on a whole tangent. So and I thought they were, I went to the room, I just like, I need a break, and I started walking off. Um and and they were talking, but I didn't say anything. I just to anybody except they don't believe me, they don't believe me. And they're like, why do you think they don't believe you? They've made a face like this. And my intermediate was like, you know, it's because they didn't understand the question either, because the question didn't make sense. What they asked, it was very strangely phrased. Um, um, but they do, they will believe you. They have jobs to do at the end of the day where they will present, but everybody in the room does believe you, even though they're advocating for the people that have, or representing the people that abused you. Um,
Yeah.
and then the judge and the other people were told you cannot make facial expressions, you cannot react to anything that she's saying.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, there was one thing, there was something really, really important. Um, oh yeah, and I didn't have to go in through the courtroom, so the judge comes through a specific
Yeah.
door. I went through and in and out that room. I had my fidgets. I had like there was something really important. I thought of and can't remember now, but you'll come to me. But oh yeah, this was it. Could take breaks whenever I wanted. I could and I could leave for the day. I did my court fact finding part over 2 days, so I can come in whenever I want. Usually, my psychologist that I was working with was asked to write a report, but whether they thought it was in my best interest to give evidence and fact finding. And
Hmm.
she said it's going to be a very healing thing. So everybody, from my social workers to my psychologist to the courts, my barrister, my residential care home staff, all supported me to make it possible. So
I mean,
Patiently.
speechless. I mean, like those are amazing. Um, I, they're more
Accommodations.
than gestures, accommodations to be a part of that hearing trial of and the concern for you. I'm speechless because it's very much the opposite here
Mm.
in America. I've had to stand next to my abuser in front of a judge and no care in the world. They'll just call you up here. And, very, very hard to
Yeah.
do, very, very hard to do in the grocery store, let alone, in,
And of
in the courtroom. Yeah.
yeah. Um, the thing is, one thing is, I only say for that part, I don't have to attend the court hearings or anything like that. It wasn't, I had the choice of attending it, even though other people ask their opinion or what they think. It's like, I had the choice to be like, no, I don't want to do it. Yes, I did want to do it. If I came there and then at the beginning of the day and I said, no, I don't want to do anything, fine, they would just let me go. Um,
Yeah.
I think I had to acknowledge there's more things that were done to protect me as a child. But I think that in the UK, compared to what I've heard from lawyers and other people who work with people in these sort of situations in America,
Mm-hmm.
there's less accommodations. Have Yeah, I don't understand why that's not the case. I feel like visas need to be protected in the courts. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. You should,
Doesn't.
I know as your role as a high conflict divorce coach is to, support your clients emotionally, but it's not your responsibility to protect them in court in that capacity.
You can only do so much. I mean, you can support from the sidelines, but you can't like take their place. Um, I go to court with a lot of clients to sit with them. I'm like, do you want me in the hall? Do you want me in the courtroom? And that's about the most like physically that we can do. And we do a lot to prepare beforehand. In all those wonderful accommodations that you listed, if you had a magic wand, was there something else that you wish was provided or offered to you that wasn't? When one day you and I rule the world, like what are you going to what are you going to implement in that arena?
Can I be honest with you? I wouldn't change anything that I've gone through. It was quite, it was, I'm going to be on my experience in court, no matter how draining it was at the end of the day, it was an enjoyable experience. If I had to go, let's just say, like, I had to go to family court again, I would do it with the accommodations that were provided. I think they took into consideration that I had significant mental health needs. That was the same judge that provided me a deprivation of liberty safeguards order as well.
Mm-hmm.
But she made sure to protect me. Yeah, it was very much. What would you do differently for yours? The thing is, it's very hard to compare our experiences when, we're
Mm-hmm.
from two different countries that do things two very different ways. I understand
Mm-hmm.
and the thing is, a judge may, like in the UK, may not give these accommodations, depending
Yeah.
on, somebody's needs, somebody's like, depending, it really depends. Um,
Yeah.
but if you think about it, if you have additional disabilities, I know, some of the people that you work with must have like additional disabilities or additional needs or disabilities. And in the UK, if a court fails to provide them accommodation, it for they are breaking Quality Act 2010.
Yeah.
You have to, you know, to make sure they're not at a disadvantage.
Yeah. A couple of things that I've helped clients with of even though accommodations aren't offered, you can kind of try to make your own accommodations and see if it flies, for better lack of words here. A lot of them, when they have to go to like mediation and it's even by a Zoom, I tell them, like, ask your attorney if you can go and sit with them in their office and be off screen. So you don't feel like the eyes of your abuser on you, or they're checking you out, or everything, or like the facial expressions, the emotion that kind of comes through. Like if you're off screen, but you're still able to talk to your attorney, like that takes tons of weight off your shoulder. Um, you had asked like what would I have changed? I mean, just even not being in the same room would have helped a lot. And I think simply that the court offered you those accommodations was showed that they did care. And in America, without having those accommodations, or just like, both of you come on up here together, spoke volumes of their ability to care.
Mm. Can I
And
agree with you? At the end of the day, if a judge it's doesn't provide accommodations, it's their choice at the end of the day. You purposely did that. You could have, made accommodations if you wanted to as a judge,
mhm,
but you really just don't give a fuck enough
there you
to
go. Yeah.
do something. It's your choice at the end of the day. It's your courtroom. It's not like they're saying, "Oh, this is your abuser. Here's a gun. Go shoot him."
Yeah. Yeah. The flip side of that too, of not just like the accommodations and physically where we are, next to our abuser. Um, we have a lot of judges that are afraid to make decisions,
Mm.
or afraid to be more aggressive. It's kind of just like, how can we get through this? And very much so, they want both sides to win. Which with your abuser, like even like for a lot of the, let's just split the expenses. Like, well, no, like it should be his. And so technically your abuser wins. They only have to pay half of what they were supposed to. And now you have to pay what they should have. I stood in front of our judge with, I think he was my ex at the time. And my judge had said, he's like, I am not a punitive judge. And in the back of my head, and I wanted to say out loud, of like, but that's your job. That's like the job description of a judge. And instead, every time we'd go, he'd just kind of try to like smooth it over. There'd be no consequences. There'd be no uh, anything in place, no fines. And he had all of that in his ability to do. And he just kind of like wanted it to just kind of go away. What can we do here to just kick the can down the road, is what a lot of us call it here, kind of caught in the
Yeah.
American court system. And the judges, when you go to them and you hope that you're going to get help or something, and they don't. And now it's
Mm.
just cost you even more money to go there with the hope and walk out with
Nothing.
something minuscule. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so because there's a few pieces that I wanted to like discuss. Like, there's Equality Act 2010, and trauma does fall underneath that because trauma, mental health conditions like complex PTSD or PTSD in general, those are trauma
Mhm.
related and it does affect you. In the UK, there's a victims code. This outlines the minimum standard of service that victims of crimes can expect from the criminal justice system. Um, um, and which includes courts. So the code ensures that survivors are treated with respect and sensitivity, and requests like special measures such as giving evidence via video link or having a room in court to avoid direct confrontation with the person accused of perpetrating this crime. Um, like my parents, for example, they were in court when they were accessing the court via video link. You know, they're still in court. They can still be held accountable. They still on because I feel like once one thing I don't like is for like I understand that I, the attending court over Zoom via like I mean via Zoom during COVID, understandable. But I do not understand why people attend court over Zoom. Like if you like as a because I feel like for an abuser when they get that option because sometimes they can play oh I'm a victim too it you don't understand the gravitas of the situation until you're in that building and sometimes they don't because they think they're above everything most of the time
Yeah.
they do um and there's also what was it there's also the Human Rights Act 1988 um
Okay.
no I'm lying 1998 and incorporates the European Convention of Human Rights, the EHCR, yeah, no,
Right.
ECHR actually, into the UK law. So articles within the ECHR, such as the right to a fair trial, Article 6, and the prohibition, yeah, good enough,
I know.
uh,
Yep.
of inhuman or degrading treatment, Article 3, comes underneath that. Which may require a court to make accommodations to protect the rights and well-being of survivors. Sometimes it is a very degrading and inhumane experience being in front of a judge.
I'm hoping that in America, like, because both of our cases are very different, um, divorce, non-divorce, and parents and child, husband and wife over here, that I'd like to think that there are more accommodations that the American version of you, if your case was up, would get the same accommodations. And it's just the abused spouses that maybe fall through the cracks, unfortunately. Um, I don't know. It seems like we know that there's abuse, but yet we pick and choose. This is abuse. This isn't. And we have husbands and wives who get PTSD and um, all the physical ailments that go through it, and high blood pressure and anxiety and depression and even suicide. So it's like, how are we sifting
Mm.
through? We have the ability to offer these accommodations, yet we don't offer them to everybody. Everybody. I'll have to look into that. I'd be interested to see if the
Mm.
American courts have anything
Yeah,
like that.
it's the one thing is I'm like, you know, I feel like often, as from an outsider's perspective, I feel like America politicians or government just don't care enough about the well-being of their constituents, their people, because and the excuse is usually like, we haven't, our country hasn't been around that long, but
Yeah.
you make such vast advancement in the world of technology, which is not really that necessary, but you can't make some advancements in your criminal system or justice system.
You had mentioned something a little bit back when we were talking about your accommodations. Um, you had, I'm going to botch maybe the wording, that maybe because you were younger or minor that you got these accommodations versus being an adult.
Uh,
And
Sorry.
one of the things I see over here, I just went by a billboard the other day that talked about schoolyard bullying. And I don't know if in Europe that makes is on everybody's radar. Of, here in America we talk about like social media and how kids are bullied through computers, phone, and that leads to depression and all, physical ailments too, of these young kids emotionally, psychologically abused by their peers. And we have billboards on that and everything, and discussion groups, and it's talked about it in school, in the school newsletters. But technically, divorce is almost the same in an abusive relationship. We just have much older people, one being abused by the other, the same outcome, the same intimidation, um, the same physical ailments leading to suicide. But yet we somehow think that because people are adults or a certain age, that this bullying shouldn't occur anymore. And yet it's very much the same thing. And somewhere when kids get out of high school, university, whatever it might be, we think it disappears. And it doesn't. We just call it husband and wife now, not schoolyard peer to peer. It's very much the same.
I feel cultures are so different. I feel like again there's a cultural aspect. In the UK bullying does happen, don't get me wrong. Um, but in secondary school it's not really a thing. There are people who bully each other, but it's much more rarer.
Fair.
Um, in secondary school. So people from 11 to 18, 19. Um, but I think there might be a much more heavy emphasis. This is what I want to say, then I'll think about how to phrase it. Um, Much more heavy emphasis on it because it affects your development, and it's more to do, and then it can cause developmental trauma. Maybe that's where the emphasis it's more heavily emphasized, but I don't know. But I think it's just, I think it's very, I wouldn't, if you're, the thing is, I feel like when adults bully, I don't see it as bullying. I see it as abuse.
And abuse should be, is bullying. Like they're intertwined, but one comes off as a little bit more juvenile and
I feel,
um,
I
dismissive.
feel, yeah, I feel like bullying is, I understand, your colleagues can bully you, and stuff like that. But after a certain age, if you have mental capacity, I wouldn't class it as bullying. I understand the severity of bullying, but if, for example, I'm not saying this is not a serious situation, but if my child was, having names called at them and stuff like that, I might see it as bullying. Will see it, and I take it very seriously. Either way, it's going to be serious. But if it's, but I can also understand that children, this child is young. Maybe they don't understand the consequences of their actions, and whatever. And if it continues, I'm like, this child is getting abused. This is a repeated thing. And when somebody has capacity and things are being explained to them, they still, I don't know where I'm going with this because I kind of don't understand. I understand it, but I understand it. Like, there's so much information taken. Yeah, it's just a complicated situation. I feel like there's so much that it's. Ugh.
In the playground, it's a little bit more obvious, right? When you have two 10, 12-year-olds, right? Because you need adult supervision or somebody's watching it, somebody's seeing it. Um, and yet when you're 30 years old, that same bully might get a little bit more skilled at hiding those inappropriate actions that they know they're going to get called out from. Now they're out in the dating world or whatever, and these poor behaviors that were so obvious when they were younger, they're behind closed doors now. And so we have some of the same behaviors going on. They're just you get an abuser that gets older that just learns their skill better than being a juvenile.
Mm. I feel like if you're a bully past 16, get a fucking grip.
I hear you.
No, because no, because like I'm mainly my primary focus is on children. I guess more my area of expertise. But I'm like, if I see a child that's bullying and they're 16, it's like not even 16, anything from 14 upwards. I'm like, get a fucking grip before I get a fucking grip for you. Same goes for adults. I don't know. For certain things, I have a very like zero level tolerance. Um, Sorry, I have a chocolate in my hand. I just
No,
just
I love it.
opened it. Um, just like, ooh. Um,
Oh, got chocolate
but
in my
yeah,
hand. There's a lot of
Yeah.
similarities that I think we dismiss depending on the age of the person.
But the one
And
thing I do think is, I agree with you. They become more skilled bullies. They probably were bullies younger. They just found somebody that was easier, that, falls in love, falls into that, like he loves me or she loves me.
yep,
Um, but one thing that I think is failures of adults as well. Why did you not do enough? Because there's a point where for example, if my child is bullying another child and they're 14 or whatever, I'm like, I don't care if you're my child. I'm gonna report you to the police because what you're doing is unacceptable. And clearly, we've tried other routes and it's not working. And you need to understand the severity of your actions. I'm the sort of
if
person.
parents would do that.
Huh?
If the parents would do that.
Yeah, that's the question. You know what? If my brothers, if my brothers were bullying someone,
Hmm.
or even if they stole like a chocolate from the shop, I would be like, you either talk to the owner or we're gonna go down the police route. I don't care if you're my brother or you're not, because like I expect better from you, and if this is a repeated issue, clearly what I'm saying is not going through, and we need to try other methods. Because if this is not controlled now, this adult is going to become an abuser. This child is going to become a thief. This child is going to, you need to
Yeah,
nip it in the bud when you can.
yeah,
And when it's different is when people have neurodivergence, disabilities, mental health conditions, behavioral difficulties. That's when I'm like, there's a different approach. It's not like, please, if you're neurotypical and you don't have any, I'll be like, that's the route we're going down
mhm,
because
mhm.
you should know better.
Should. We see it in the marriages when you have, and again, I keep saying father, it's sometimes it's the mother,
But you
one
know what?
parent.
Sorry to
No,
interrupt you.
no, go ahead.
It's, I understand, and I agree, females and males do get abused, but and people get so offended when, you automatically go to the female example with the
Mhm.
female being, the victim. And you're like, but statistically, that is true. Forget
It
about
is.
marriages for a second. If you think about sexual harassment or any sort of crime, sexual harassment, stalking, 97% of women in the world have experienced that in one way or the other. That
Yeah.
speaks
I
volumes.
just I just don't want to add in that it's only men
Only.
that are abusers. And so I try to
Yeah.
like shove it the other way. What was I going to say with it? Would you have two parents, one is an abuser, and the
Mm.
child starts learning those actions of the abuser. And you think
Mm.
that the other parent would be strong enough to step in and say, you don't do that. But they're kind of beaten down emotionally, psychologically from the abusive parent that they can't speak up, or it's, they're you're nagging, don't talk to my son that way, don't do that. So you might be a parent that can completely see it and see it in your children, and see them bullying other kids, right? You can see the progression, but you could be being abused so badly yourself, so intimidated to speak up, so afraid to go against what your partner is saying, that you can't. And now you have to kind of almost watch it uh, play out, see your child not have a lot of friends because they're a bully, but idolize their abusive parent. And that plays a whole nother tornado of craziness and trying to comprehend, trying to get out, trying to teach morals and ethics to a 10, 12-year old
Yeah.
that has so
I'm
much.
gonna be honest. Some people might find it really like triggering on me honest about this, but boohoo is my podcast. So there's people that's gonna email me or whatever saying, why would you admit to this? I'm like, it's part of life. Like, I'm not as physically aggressive as I used to be, but my instinct is to be physically aggressive. I can be a very physically aggressive person because you know what? That's the only way I could protect myself as a child. That's the only way that I know is safe. If I feel threatened in any way, shape, or form, that's how I'm going to react because I know that's worked in the past for me. You
Mhm.
know, that's what I've seen for all of my formative years, and I'm a very physically aggressive person. Not as much anymore, but I'm like, it's. I feel like often, I feel like this goes into a different topic, but when children are physically aggressive, or you are, it's easier said than done. But when you see your child becoming like your abuser, that's the time when you need to leave. Easier said than done, though.
Thank you for adding that in.
Um, but it's just, it's so, and it's like you go around life that way, you know. I can be, I'm not a confrontational person, but I can be a very aggressive person because I know that's worked. And even when I came to care, I've been aggressive for the last, for a good 4 years, extremely aggressive. This is my go-to. I mean, because I've just been taken out of the environment doesn't mean I feel safe, and I don't trust these fucking bitches. So what makes you think I'm gonna, not react the
Yeah.
same?
Yeah.
It's so much that and it,
Yeah.
and you know what? It's that one piece of control, like what that your abuser thrives on. I've noticed when their child is aggressive, they get a thrill out of it, as if they're being pumped with like endorphins. Like, ooh,
Yeah. Attention, supply, idolized,
it's a way of like them asserting dominance. Another way that
power, control.
I'm just like, hmm, it's interesting. High
That's
conflict. Sorry, go ahead. No,
uh,
no, go.
that's a lot of my clients who are the parent. The light bulb gets a little bit lighter when they see their child now mimicking and looking up to the abusive parent and thinking that that behavior is okay. And there's a lot of hope that goes in that this will change. Surely it will change, right? They'll outgrow this, and it's gone on for years. And now you kind of get to a break point. Usually mentally you have cracked. And a line that I, not a line, something I tell a lot of my clients of like, at the point when you are like beat down the most, you are the most broken, we're going to ask you to stand up the tallest, because now you really have to fight, speak up, leave. Um, and I can tell you they're not going to like it. But like right, that power and control that they had over you, you're now taking it back to yourself, and the abuse is going to escalate, and it gets to be pretty scary. And I love it that you threw in easier said than done to just
I made sure to say it twice because I was like,
you
it
say
needs to
that
be
to my
heavy.
clients all the time. I'm not in your shoes. Easier said than done, but I'm here to support you any way I can to
Mm,
shove you to the front of that line and hold you up in any way I can, and whatever is needed to be behind you in standing up as tall as you can.
definitely. Um, high conflict divorces, they often involve intense emotional distress. Do you teach your clients any specific techniques to manage the anxiety, the anger, and frustration throughout the process of maintaining a sense of control?
Yeah. I lead a divorce support group. We do 6 weeks, and each week's a different topic. And just last week we do a whole 2 hours on self care. And admittedly, a lot of people came like, well, I just thought it was, pedicures, bubble baths, and massages. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Um, Self care is limiting your contact with your abusive, toxic person. That's putting yourself first. It's all the things that are in front of you, what you're looking at, what's on your phone, what's your social media, what are you watching, and if it isn't good for you, if you know it's causing you more anxiety, more depression, let's change those things. Let's take them out of the mix. If you hate your bedroom or whatever it is, let's change some things up. Let's watch what you listen to. What podcasts are you listening to? Are they helping you? Are they validating you and lifting you up? Or is it just doom and gloom? And why is it that way? And all of these things that can make or break how you are, how strong you are the next day to go in and have to go to court, have to write that document, have to approve that document and go through it. We started our conversation, right, talking about cooking, and that's not my strength. And I'm very cognizant of my mental energy and what I have to give to what places. And I need to give so much to my kids and my clients and my house and making an income to pay bills. But I don't want to give that much mental energy to what I'm going to cook for dinner. And I expend a lot of energy on that. And so when we were in this self-care class, we were talking about, like, if that sucks a lot of energy from you, outsource it. Do a meal prep thing. Have somebody deliver meals to you. Frozen meals are okay. Like this, just find ways that benefit you. And it doesn't have to be massages and bubble baths by any means, but you can still get those, but it doesn't have to be that way. We try to take emotionally the scariness out of it. Because usually, typically, too, the individuals that are abused, they've not put themselves first. I mean, they've had to put their abuser first, or they knew that there were repercussions, consequences, punishments for doing things on their own. It's a really hard mindset to change. Of no, you can go out in the afternoon and go do this, and take the time to just listen to the music that you want to listen to. And we also pepper it with, like, you don't have to midnight tonight. Like, let's start with the little things. Let's start with the little ways that maybe you are interacting, or how you're spending your time, or when you're coming home, and what do you do? Stay at work 30 minutes later, or even in your car in your parking lot, and meditate or listen to something for yourself before you have to go home, be a mother, be a father, put up with your abuser, whatever it might be. And so there's tons of things of self-care that I think easily get overlooked. It doesn't have to be a $10,000 retreat. It can be just a little online YouTube thing that you watch free, like those free things too. I think that's a lot of clients love to hear that, because they hear you need to do more self-care, do more self-care, do more self-care. And like, well, I can't afford some of these things that I always thought were self-care. And when we start to open up the window and show so much more of what self-care is, oh, and then they feel like they have movement. They feel like that they are a part of their own healing process. And like, yeah, I am doing that. I did do that. And I did read that book, and I did listen to all those podcasts. And now it gives them a sense to keep moving in that direction. Do you have a favorite self-care thing you go to, drug of choice, whatever? I say that not being a real drug, but like something that you turn
When
to.
there's two things I do. Whether it's first one, people won't see it self-care, but for me is I enjoy the work that I do. I work very, very closely with amazing people, whether it's direct work or people that, that work for my organization, meeting up with people online, from all over the world. I enjoy
Mm-hmm.
doing stuff like that. I find it's heals my inner soul. But at the same time, I like to lie in my bed with absolutely nothing on my laptop. My laptop is closed. I like to watch a television show or something, or have it in the background and scroll on my phone.
Yeah.
You know, there's other things where I will cancel meetings sometimes.
Mhm.
You've seen my schedule before.
Oh yeah, I have.
I'll be
It's a
like,
miracle we're talking right now.
yeah, it is. When I have to reschedule, I don't reschedule that often. But when I do, I have to, or else I have no other option but to reschedule. I don't do it that often. So it's like I'll reschedule my meetings,
Yeah.
being like, I cannot mentally be able to do this to the standard that I would like.
Yeah. And you're putting
Um,
yourself first. The sun still comes up the next day and you needed that time,
yeah.
regroup, reconnect, whatever it is, we'll reschedule.
And one thing that I learned is I would get used before when I started my role in my organization, like a lot of people that I would meet, either for induction for a podcast or something, and either I'm overworked or I have an emergency appointment to attend to, or, I'm really unwell, and they'll get angry at me. I used to get really
Oh,
upset because I'll be like, I let this person down. I feel really now I'm like, you know what? If you have a problem, that's absolutely fine. I've grown my
yeah.
organization to the place that it is. I have 4 years worth of guests lined up for my podcast. Still can't believe that, but yeah, 4 years worth of guests lined up. I'm
I'm honored to be
absolutely,
here on this date then. Yeah.
yeah, I'm absolutely, fine. I feel like I'm growing in different ways where I don't seek that external validation. I'm like,
Mhm.
sometimes you need it, but not from strangers that, treat me like shit. Sometimes it's me saying, who is this person to speak to me like this? I don't need this person. I've this is going out. This person's angry at me and they don't want to work with me again. That's absolutely fine. And you know what happens? Usually these people reach out to me asking to come back to film this podcast or be like or promote their stuff and I'm like, I just ignore the email. And that's absolutely fine. You just need to put yourself first because if you keep allowing these toxic people to come in again and again.
It's a very strange thing for somebody who might has been a victim or post victim to say that they have power. And it's like, oh, I don't have any power. I'm like, oh, yes, you do. You have a lot of power of who you allow time with you physically, real estate in your space. You have that in your control, and just like exercise it. Don't just let everybody come in and walk all over you and take some more, take another big chunk. Just slowly step away. Just don't respond to that email and
Yeah.
do what you
You
need
know
to
what's
do.
crazy? Those are the people that always send you multiple follow-ups. And I'm really like, just, what people don't know, which I'm like, what's crazy is you can block email addresses. So just block an email address.
Oh,
God send.
self-care. That's self-care right there. Like, right?
Just my block
Save
list on
it.
my phone. It screams self-care. It's simple things, before like, when you're healing, before a message comes in and I need to reply as soon as possible. Now I'm like, I can wait an hour, I can wait 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. We'll be there.
I might forget about it, but that's the whole other problem. Send me a follow-up. Um, but yeah.
That blocking somebody, um, the first thing that it came to my mind. I mean, I fully like bought into this of like, oh, I can't block them. That's how rude. I don't want to be rude. And so I wouldn't. And, there's the same pictures in my face and things and stories. I'm like, and it's just like weighing me heavier down. And, it was a friend who's like, you can block them. You totally can. will you feel better if you don't keep seeing this stuff? I'm like, yeah, like this isn't the time to think of like, oh, that's rude. Self-care, self-care, block, block the things that, people who, politics are a hot item over here in the United States right now. Right? Like if you don't want to keep seeing somebody saying this or saying that, if they're not saying it in a kind way or like just off the rails, we don't need to keep putting that in front of our face and exerting energy to that.
We spoke about addressing coercive control in the earlier parts of this podcast, and dealing with the legal system is exhausting. It's definitely exhausting. And, especially when a divorce is such high conflict and is abusive, it often leaves lasting impact beyond the immediate proceedings. How do you work with your clients to create a long-term conflict management plan that addresses potential future disputes, such as those involving, co-parenting, relocation, or new relationships? Because if you have an
Yeah.
abusive partner, they're not gonna love that. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
you're, you know, it's they're like, "Oh, I'm losing this like hold that I have over you more and more and more." And nobody really speaks about the post-separation abuse. So,
Which can actually be worse than the
yeah.
actual abuse. The game changes on you post separation. You have a little bit more legalities behind you, but the rules kind of change on you. I don't have the most like motivating answer here. Like it's all unicorns and sunshine afterwards, right? Like it's just amazing. You will get stronger in different ways. The abuse and the flippant emails and whatever else comes off, it's not going to stick to you as much. You're going to see the patterns, you're going to see the abuse, you're going to see the insecurities of the other person. You're going to see through the lies, and you'll read their messages and close it. Like there's no response, there's no question here that I need to answer. And so it ties back into that radical acceptance of this is the person, unfortunately, I married and now I have to deal with because we have kids together. I have some clients whose exes are really, I mean, they escalate the abuse big time, and it hurts. It hurts my clients. And we try to find the benefits in it, right? And like, where are the benefits in this? How are crazy woman, like, really benefits in this? I guess there are. Your soon to be ex is kind of over here and you're here. And it is a wonderful view that you're showing your children how different you are. And it makes a clear picture for the kids who, if you were really close together in your parenting styles, it'd be a foggier picture for them to pick out what's right and what's wrong. And so, unfortunately, when the abuse picks up, you have more documentation too. I get a client who will, kind of will be on the phone, they'll be crying, and I'm like, this is amazing. Like, save that email, right? Wait until that's read out in court or slipped over to your ex's attorney of like, look, they're threatening. This is basically illegal stalking here. And trying to turn it around. Yeah, it's bad and it hurts. But how are we going to use this for good? We have in America a lot of parenting apps, such as Our Family Wizard, Talking Parents, and there's a couple more out there that are circulating. But it's a way to communicate with your ex, other parent, co-parent, abuser, right? All the same tags to the same person. Because you do have to communicate about your children, whether it's a school thing, a medical issue with them, a schedule thing. But these parenting apps make it a little bit safer. They're time stamped. They're stamped of what time they're looked at, and sent back. And I personally love it because I can only see it on my laptop when I'm at home. And it really gives you the time of like, okay, I got a little extra mental energy, and now I'm going to open up the app and see what kind of craziness is going to come flying out of these messages. And I can handle it versus I'm at work, already a little stressed, and an email pops up and, throws everything off all day. Knowing when you can kind of deal with what you have to deal with and choosing that time gives you a lot of power, gives you a lot of control. Um, I have some great clients that do an amazing job of when their children come home and say, but daddy said this, and it's just something out in left field, right? Um, Possibly an older version of ourselves would have been wanted to explode, like, what? And kind of go like, that's untrue. Beep, 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 the words that come out of your mouth. And that's a very scary situation for children, especially like younger children. And so when you hear these kind of lies, whatever it is, the smear campaign going on, and your children are it's coming out of their mouth, sit with them. And they just like, wow, how does that make you feel? Do you think that that's true? And like really dissect it with them in a calm way. And it will really set the stage that those kids will come to you more often with
Yeah.
not even like problems with parenting, like just school things, boyfriend, girlfriend things. Like when you can really show um, your unconditional love, and no matter what they come to you to say, it builds those bonds. And even though you are talking about their parent, you're talking about it in a respectful way too. You're not dragging them down, putting them in the mud, calling them every name in the book, whatever it might be. There's a lot of ways that I love, that I've just discovered. I've shamelessly taken from other clients and other people that I've heard. But I found when I talk to my boys, like, it's hard to like talk eyeball to eyeball, like just staring at each other. And so we do a lot of great talks in the car when you don't have to look at each other. I find that I get a lot more information, a lot more detail. And yeah, I'm more comfortable to ask more questions too, when it's not so intimidating. So spotlight on it. Again, with the answer that's not the most motivating and unicorns and rainbows, I kind of explain it to my clients too, of like, kind of think of this as kind of a cancer diagnosis, or that you were an alcoholic. And this is something that will always be with you for the rest of your life. To some degree, hopefully you're in remission for a long time, or you're sober and you can handle it, but there'll be triggers that will come around, and to not be upset when they come around. And some days will be better, some days will be worse. But if you think that it's just going to go away 100%, you're going to be sorely disappointed in the days that it does bubble up, fester up. And we cannot control which days those are, right? Like if we could, we would choose wisely on the calendar. But it's probably going to come around at the worst possible moment, possible time. And how do you deal? What are your go-to things? What do you go to your room, lie in bed, flip through your phone, and turn a TV show on? Like have a toolbox of things that bring your anxiety down, bring you peace, make you smile. And no, you'll be able to start to like, okay, that message from my ex really triggered me. And now I know what I'm going to go do. And handling it better. You said the term, the phrase long term, and it is long term. It completely is. Unfortunately, if I could change it, I would for everybody. But it is long term, and it will change. It will fade. It will come up more. It will fade a little bit. But I think that's why it's so powerful. The group settings, the group support groups. As a coach to a lot, one-on-one coach to a lot of clients, yeah, I might, they're through their divorce, the legalities aren't there anymore. But they can always go back to their group or their accountability buddies that they formed, or the special people that they reached out to or met on a retreat, and be there for each other when the long term kicks in of having to deal with who they married and are now stuck with for a long time. Mm, it's a good question.
We have some scenarios now.
Okay.
The first one is not from the partner, it's from a child.
Okay.
Um, so he said, Dear Eleanor, I'm 14 and my parents have been going through a really nasty divorce for over a year now. At first, they tried to hide their disagreements from me, but now they both use me as a middleman. My dad
Mm,
tells me my mum is being selfish. My mum says my dad only cares about himself. They each want me to take their side, but I can't. I love them both, and it hurts me when they talk
yeah.
badly about each other, especially to me. I try telling them how I feel, but they don't listen. They just keep pulling me in opposite directions. I'm starting to feel anxious all the time, and I'm scared I'll lose one of them if I don't pick a side. How can I stop feeling so torn? Sincerely, split in two.
I'm gonna start to cry. At 14, to see all that, to feel all that too, right? And two people that this 14-year-old loves, a mother and a father, and how the mother and the father are the ones causing this to the child. It's really the parents that I want to talk to, not the child. But this 14-year-old, like, this is right. You're gonna have to stand up the tallest. When the mom starts talking bad about the dad or whatever, you know what? I prefer not to hear about this right now. And probably going to upset the mother or vice versa with the father. But what's going on right now is not working. Listening to it, and carrying it and having it stick to yourself, not working. And it's probably going to get worse, right? Like, talk about the physical ailments. And so making some bolder moves. I I can't listen to this right now. Um, Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But explaining to the one parent, do you know how much I love my other parent?
Mm.
And you're talking badly about them. And for the 14-year-old, I think their parents are looking for some sort of validation from their child.
Mm.
And
That's what.
maybe if he or she, I don't, I can't read into that, says, you know what, I know my father hurt you terribly. I get it. I see it, and I'm working through it, and I need my own life experience, my own time frame to understand. But for right now, please don't talk about my father that way. Don't talk about my mother that way. I think for that 14-year-old, like, they're the child, and it's such a different aspect than being the husband, the wife, the mother, or the father, because I think that the person who wrote that in said for a while they tried to hide their disagreements. So all of this bullshit, right? This is a cussing podcast, has been going on for years before that child ever became a active player in it.
Mm.
Mother and father are long miles ahead of where they are in understanding and seeing things. And so it's a different perspective that everybody has. And this one 14-year-old is way down the way than where these adults are. And it might be a very telltaling thing if you tell one parent, show your emotions. I don't want to talk about this with you. I love my other parent. Please respect that. I understand that they hurt you. That's a big thing, because when you
She
kind of don't
said
say it, it
at one
means
point in the message, she said, I try telling them how I feel, but they don't listen.
they don't listen.
Wait,
Even
for me, it's
I'm
like I know I'm not the expert in the situation, but I'm like, I listen to that and I'm like, when I was at home, a different situation again. I'm like, can't, I'm gonna run away when I go to university in 1018. Like that was a black. And I'm like, it's if you have other, for me, I think if you have other trusted members in your family or people or an adult that you know,
mm,
whether it's in school or something, you need to tell them because it's affecting your mental health because you are increasingly anxious. Um, it seems like your emotional needs are neglected,
huh?
and clearly there needs to be a third party intervention.
I'm trying desperately to find the words to not sound so um,
Go for it, just say
doom
it
and
is.
gloom, doom and gloom. Um, as this 14-year-old is trying and they're not listening, right? Those are they're coming forward saying their boundaries and the parents are just blowing past them, don't care. Not the answer you wanted to hear or for the child to the action for those parents, but it's an answer, like, right? And making decisions on you can't get your parents to listen. Like you can only control what you're going to do, not them.
Yeah.
I don't. The only other thing I would throw in, I know they're not listening, and sometimes when we try to have verbal conversations, we
I,
we don't we back down a little bit. We don't say because the words can be really scary, and we don't want to sound mean to one parent or the other. What about writing a letter, one letter to both parents? You can make two copies, whatever, and you give it to both of them, and very
type
transparent.
up, change the names.
Yeah. Hey, both of you, call them both out. Um, it it might bring things down a notch of showing that I don't love you more than the other. You guys are both on even keel because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to
Hmm. Yeah.
get that love, that whatever. I'm right, correct? And maybe it will work.
Can
No
it's
guarantees in any of this.
yeah. You know, you know what it seems like. To me, it's like I work with children and young people. That's my and I work with professionals who work with them. So it's two very different perspectives that we have. But it's like, and I think that's what makes this so great, this conversation. It's for me, I'm like, somebody else needs to do the drop off. If both of you cannot look after this child in the way that it needs to be, then like, it's because your child, you know, maybe pastoral care, you need to get involved at school. Maybe it gets to the point if this continues, social services, because you're putting your child in emotional turmoil and you're supposed to meet their emotional needs. That's one of the basic needs because this is going to affect our education and affect our well-being because it seems like if the mother and the father cannot talk to each other, then what needs to happen is somebody there needs to be like, oh, like let's just say there's a grandmother involved, right, and she's very able-bodied. You might be like, oh, can you pick the child up from my house and then drop it off to your son or drop it
Yeah.
into your ex-son-in-laws because
Yeah.
clearly you cannot be an adult and have a conversation.
Yeah. Right. We,
But
we say the word adult,
hmm,
and a lot of definitions come to mind. And unfortunately,
that's not
that
one
is
of them.
not always the case. Not always the case.
Yeah.
I'm going to be thinking about that in individual, like all day today of 14, basically a young adult. Now that we just
No, but the thing is,
poke some
right,
holes
what
in
I
it.
do for this podcast, like this, because we've done these like sort of segments in this podcast, and what I do is I don't associate it with, they know it's going to go on a podcast. I don't associate it with, my children's chronic part of my chronic's name. But for this child to go to multiple different forums to find somewhere where they can ask for advice
Mhm.
is fucking ridiculous in terms of it seems like you can't turn to anybody.
Yeah.
And you're now going into the internet to seek advice, which can be a very much a hit or a miss.
Mhm. Imagine if they were 6 or 7 years old, right? Like, what options are even available to them? I mean, at least at 14, hopefully, young adults can school options. But yeah,
Dear Eleanor, my divorce has left me financially ruined, and I'm at a loss for what to do. Between the legal fees, the division of assets, and my ex refusing to uphold his part of our financial agreements, I'm barely staying afloat. I work full time, but it's not enough to cover the mortgage, childcare, and the mountain of debt I accumulated over the last 2 years of this ugly divorce process. I'm terrified of losing my home, and my kids are already feeling this instability. I want to provide for them, but I don't even know where to begin rebuilding my financial life after this mess. How do I regain control of my finances when I feel like everything's spiraling? Regards, struggling to stay afloat.
yeah. That is a very common, right? Like your whole life burns down. This isn't just I don't have a spouse anymore. Like financially, the stress and everything. The simple version of it is it's a million baby steps. Um, do you have the best job you can have? I mean, is there something you can do within your job? Can you get a promotion? Can you expand somehow? Can you approach your manager about taking on more things that get you a higher income and try to work it that way? Are there other side things? And then looking at what you're spending, can you whittle it down? Legal fees. Some attorneys will allow you to just pay bits and pieces here as long as you're consistent and you just keep paying each month. They just want to see the effort being made. Some aren't as forgiving. Um, Never be afraid to go pro se, meaning represent yourself. It sounds like, because she said she's divorced, she has a divorce decree. He's just not following it. Um, it's just a matter of filing like a contempt of court or a motion of like forcing him to file or garnishing wages. Um, thank goodness for the internet to find a couple of things of like, how do I file this? Lots of online support groups that are pro se of what do I need to do to get this done, to get what I deserve in the first place, or was already awarded, but haven't actually gotten. But just it's a million baby steps, a million, a million, a million to put it together and dig out a lot.
Dear Eleanor, I'm at my wits' end and trying to co-parent with my ex-wife. We've been divorced for a year and our children are 8 and 10 years old. I've tried everything to maintain a consistent routine for them, but every time I set boundaries or create structure, she undermines me. She changes plans last minute, refuses to communicate about important decisions, and sometimes bad mouths me in front of the kids. I'm worried that our children are suffering because of the constant conflict between us. They become more withdrawn and anxious, and I fear it's because they're caught in the middle of our disputes. I don't want them to grow up thinking this is normal. What can I do to create a stable environment for them when my ex refuses to cooperate? Best, desperate dad.
8 and 10, those are young ages. Um, I think someone told this to me a long time ago. We can't force our exes to be amazing moms and wives, because this is a dad who was writing in when we were married to them, and hence why we're divorced. So you got to drop the expectation that we can make them now great moms and wives. They're going to do what they're going to do. It's This is just who they are. And that constant showing up in your own integrity and the things that you are true. And even if your spouse is talking bad about you, dropping plans, um, you got to find the silver lining in it. I always have clients who are like, "Oh, can you believe he canceled again at the last minute?" And I'm like, "Yes, I can. I can totally believe it." I said, "But you've been saying how much more you want more time with your kids. You just got it." Like, I know it is inconvenient for you, and he probably does it just to get a rise out of you. Have backup plans, have babysitters, grandparents, or whoever it is that can take your children if you really have to go. Um, this whole post divorce life is about having backup plans because your co parent is probably so all over the board. And whether it's, the time or somebody who can drive them to something because they were supposed to drive to soccer practice and now they can't. Be prepared and don't let it like phase you. It will take a while, but like get your outsourcing options together.
It's upsetting obviously for the mother. You know, was it the husband, whoever it was, cancelled, plans and stuff like that. But what about the children? The impact that it's going to have on the children? Was they're like looking forward to this? They're
Yeah.
whomever coming to pick them up, and they're
Yeah.
like imagining what they're going to do. They're going to do this. They're going to go for ice cream because he promised us last time, and it just doesn't
Yeah.
happen. You
Yeah.
know, even though
Um,
it's great that she wants to spend, more time with him, for example, if that was the case. But it's children, the child might still be like, upset.
yeah. Um, it's something that you just sit with them with. I mean, right? We can't, we want to make it disappear. We can't. And honestly, life is full of disappointments. It's not like you're going to, get older or you're going to be disappointed by neighbors, coworkers, bosses, teachers. Sit with them. Hey, I understand you really wanted to go for ice cream. You know what? I have one thing I need to do right now. And I can't drive to that ice cream place, but let's go get ice cream here, or let's go get cupcakes here, or like you become really good at pivoting and trying to make lemonade out of lemons. And you do what you can. Again, you're just human though, too. If you can't do it, you tell your child, hey, I really wish I could buy that for you, but I can't right now. And I'm hoping maybe one day I can, but that's just not it is right now. It's a more realistic view of what life is as well. Um, moving down the road, honesty. Your kids will appreciate honesty much more than you trying to like stretch yourself thinner than you already are.
Looking back on, our conversation, what's the most important takeaway or message you want the audience to remember?
That emotional and psychological abuse is it's more rampant than you think it is. And just because there's no scars, because someone doesn't have their arm in a cast or they're in a wheelchair, it could be the person who is in front of you at the grocery store and they are just struggling for every breath because of um, the constant put downs that they're hearing from their spouse and the financial control. And everybody on the outside thinks that their spouse is amazing and they're being horribly abused behind closed doors. I want that to be the takeaway, that if you just open your eyes a little bit more, you're going to start to see it. And when you start to see it, you can't unsee it, on how sometimes a victim will appear and an abuser will look.
How do you hope this episode will resonate with our listeners?
Um, I know it's not the easiest to digest. I find many of the times when I go and speak, or I I say like, I get it. Like, this isn't what a lot of people want to hear, that they're being abused. Their parents might be abusing each other. Their parents might be abusing them. But I think that's maybe how we've gotten into this situations. We don't talk about it. And it again, it can be little baby steps. We just talk about it a little bit. We don't have to, take a whole psychology course in it, but just start to see it in the movies you watch, the TV shows, and like, that wasn't a really nice way that they treated the other, or saying something, or like how, what the definition of love should be and how you perceive it. I think we don't. I would want more people to ask more questions about it. scary questions.
Are there any upcoming projects, events, or resources you'd like to share with the audience?
Um, I have a couple other podcasts that I'm on. I'm usually on the Covert Narcissists podcast regularly for question and answers. So we have another one scheduled up. Kind of in the works is I've been to a couple of retreats. I've been to one retreat 3 times for covert narcissism abuse and physical emotional abuse at the hands of an intimate partner. And kind of working on adding to additional retreats. They'll be in the US. Sorry, anybody who's in Europe, but you can always fly on over. But hopefully soon there'll be something on there about being able to come together with other people who are experiencing it. Like I said before, like that group atmosphere, the healing just explodes when you have other people around you, not just in your Zoom screens, but then when you're actually sitting with them at meals and can connect in those ways. So hopefully we'll see something like that 2025 soon, hopefully.
Where can our listeners find you or connect with you to stay up to date with work?
Yeah. I have a website. Everything is kind of there. The website is fairly easy, I think. www.eleanormarks.net. And so that's ELEANORMARKS.net. They can read about coaching one-on-one. They can read a little bit more about my story. They can email me. There's a direct form. If they got questions, I'm happy to answer questions. No matter how small, how silly, would love to help them in any way I can. They can ask questions about one-on-one coaching, and actually they can just book straight from there if that's something that they want to do. I have a couple of different options. They can go session to session. There's a little meet and greet option, and then there's a package that just helps with the cost wise if that's something that they feel that they want to do.
Amazing. Finally, what's one thing that you're grateful for today?
Aside from my children, my 2 boys that keep me laughing throughout all of this, I am overwhelmed and incredibly grateful for the clients that allow me to walk side by side them in this incredibly emotionally charged. Sometimes it can be embarrassing. All your intimate details are like kind of thrown out on the table for divorce, and that I can be the person that they either turn to, looking for help, looking for solutions, sit with them and navigate. Every time I hang up the phone with the client, I put my hand on my chest and I'm like, I'm grateful that I got to spend however much time that was with them, and I want to put all that in a jar up on the shelf. It's an amazing opportunity over and over again that I get.
As we wrap up part 2 of this eye-opening episode, we once again extend our heartfelt thank you to Eleanor Marks for her invaluable insights into the complexities of emotional and psychological abuse in high conflict divorces. As we discussed, trauma is a journey, and it's important to remember that you're not alone. If you or someone you know has experienced emotional or psychological abuse, please seek help from trusted friends, family members, or professionals. You deserve a life free from abuse and filled with empowerment. Join us in advocating for the recognition of emotional abuse as a serious form of domestic abuse. Together we can build supportive communities for survivors. Please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, as this allows us to continue doing what we're doing. Thank you for tuning in to My Trauma's Chronic, but I'm iconic. Stay iconic until next time.